The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Cut. Cut is a peer-to-peer social betting platform that's US-based and available in 40 states. Head to Cut.com, that's KUTT.com. Use promo code SGPN for a 10% deposit bonus. We're also brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets, sports betting research platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app at HOPENY.com. Use code SGPN to get 50% off your first month and start making smarter bets today. And don't forget to enter our Super Bowl 58 props contest. Pick 58 Super Bowl props for a chance to win $1,000. Enter today for free at sportscampodcast.com/SB58 or in the SGPN app. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is currently early Sunday morning, February 11th, and I'm your host, always, Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Should be a fun but short episode, only 3 matches to talk about, because it is time to get into the final in Cordoba, in Dallas, and in Marseille. So we are going to talk about 3 matches. Should be fun. Couple of surprise finalists, which we'll get into in a second. Before we get into any of the actual recap from the last episode and any of the previews for the 3 matches, do want to quickly remind everybody to like and subscribe on YouTube. Don't forget to rate and review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you're new, welcome. Stick around, and let's make some money betting on some tennis. But looking at some other piece of news to mention, don't forget to check out the merch store on the SGPN website for Tennis Gambling Podcast merch. We now have t-shirts, we have mugs, we got stuff for the show. Relatively new, I'd say got posted about a month ago, give or take. But the point is, if you do want to support the show, check out the merch store and buy some type of merchandise for the podcast. But either way, time to start off with the recap from the last episode for the semis. Overall, pretty decent episode. Not great, not terrible. Good news, though, we did win the lock. We had the over in the Dimitrov and Khachanov match at 22.5 games at -130. That match was never in doubt for the over. It was an absolute war. Dimitrov, I thought, would win probably in 3. I mentioned that I thought the money line price was insane. It was. Khachanov had a shot to win it, fell short as Dimitrov got the job done and advanced to his second final of 2024. So we'll see if Dimitrov can win his second title on a Sunday. Either way, though, the lock was never in doubt. Nice winner there. For the dog, though, really was not close. We had Baez to win in straight sets against Darderi in Cordoba at +125. Didn't happen as Darderi hit the gates running as he ended up opening up a massive lead early in the first set, won the first set 6-1, I think, and actually won the match. So either way, Baez was not close, lost outright, and as a result, we ended up splitting. For the other semifinal matches, really kind of hit and miss. We were not right about the what were we not right about? The Dallas matches. We thought that Paul and that Giro would probably end up losing. They both won. We thought Hurkacz would win. He did not. The Dimitrov match we got right on the nose, and we got the Magnus match right, as we thought he would end up beating Coria, and he did. So once again, not a great day per se, but we split the lock and dog picks. Hopefully we'll do better on the Sunday matches. But either way, to go quickly into my actual breakdown of each match, we're going to start off with, in chronological order, the Humbert match against Hurkacz. Simply put, Humbert was on fire the entire match. He was great. Now you're looking at the actual stats, and Hurkacz ended up having 9 aces, 2 double faults, ended up landing 63% of the first serves. That was where the problem ended up lying, because Hurkacz won 88% of his first serve points, but only 37% of his second serve points. So the issue was Hurkacz didn't make enough first serves, and Humbert not only won 80% of the first serve points, but he landed 77% of the first serves. So that's why Humbert did not get broken in the match. He ended up fighting off all 3 break points. Hurkacz failed to fight off any break points as he went 0 for 2 in that regard. But the point is, Humbert looked great, ended up beating Hurkacz for the first time, and now he's in a final in his home country again, after doing so last year, I believe, in Metz. But now you're looking at Dimitrov. That match was incredible, easily the match of the day, and Dimitrov did just enough at the end to survive the tiebreak. Khachanov threatened to potentially break right before the breaker, didn't get it, and then you saw Dimitrov hit a ridiculous running shot on the line that kind of swung the tide of the tiebreak. Khachanov also just fell apart down the stretch in that tiebreaker. I believe he lost the last 3 points he had on his own serve, and it was kind of a mess with unforced errors, but Dimitrov got it done as he ended up winning in 3. As for Dallas, Paul and Giron won comfortably. The matches were objectively bad because the guy got an early lead and coasted, and that was kind of the story. Shelton was disappointing. Simply put, there were some rumors he was injured. I don't buy that. I just think Paul beat him, and Giron ended up beating Mannarino easily. I mentioned before that Mannarino had a gift of a path, and he really didn't have to play any tennis to get to the semis, and unfortunately, that came back to bite him, as Giron has been in phenomenal form all tournament long, and now he's looking for his first ever ATP title, so we'll see what happens. As for Cordoba, you saw Bagnes beat Coria in a fun match. Coria, simply put, has no firepower at all, and kind of a weird little flaw in his game that was quite apparent in that second set. He cannot hit an overhead to save his life, so it seemed like Coria was voluntarily trying to avoid hitting overheads and settling for defensive tweeners behind the baseline because he was afraid of hitting the ball over his head, and it just seemed like that came back to bite him on several key points. So I wanted to mention that Coria just can't hit an overhead, and it seemed like he was just on the back foot the entire match by choice because he was just unwilling to actually unload on the forehand or the backhand, and Bagnes did enough. Kind of stumbled down the stretch, but got it done as he ended up winning the second set 7-5. Darderi, though, was great. Got off to a fast start. Baez kind of righted the ship there in the second set, winning at 6-3. There was a long bathroom break, I guess, by Darderi to start the third set, and that was the reset button that he needed because Darderi got a break somewhere in the early middle of the third set and held on at the end. Wasn't easy. It kind of looked like he was cramping a bit, actually, in the final couple games, but he got through it. Baez's unforced errors were a serious problem, and he just handed away too many free points, simply put. So that was the biggest shocker of the day. It was Darderi beating the defending champion in his home country, and now you have a pretty fun final in Cordoba. Actually, a historic final. I believe it is the either third or fourth time ever in ATP history where two qualifiers are playing in the final of an event. I think it's the third time, might be the fourth, pretty sure it's the third, but you can correct me if I'm wrong in the description. But the point is you have two qualifiers, Bagnes and Darderi, in the ATP tournament final, which has only happened a handful of times before. So either way, that's pretty cool, but that's going to do it for the actual recap of those matches. Now it's time to get into the actual preview of the matches on Sunday. Before we get into any of that, do you want to take a quick word from our sponsor? Looking for a super offer for Super Bowl 58? DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered. New customers can bet on the big game and turn $5 into $200 instantly in bonus bets. You can currently find the Super Bowl lines available on DraftKings. The Chiefs are +2 and the Niners are -2. The over-under is set at 47.5. Should be a fun game, and hopefully you make some money betting on it with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code SGP. New customers can bet $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets, only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 58 with code SGP. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-78-97777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/football for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gambling resources. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy has a way to plug inside your favorite fantasy players all season long. NFL, NBA, NHL, college basketball, and college football. Simply pick higher or lower on your favorite fantasy players' fantasy stats and cash in. You can win 100 times your money with some spicy plays. Watch along, maybe make a little money and make some picks over on Underdog's mobile app or website, UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, remember to use the promo code SGPN. Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. Underdog Fantasy, promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished recapping Saturday semifinal matches in Cordoba, Dallas, and in Marseille. Now it is time to get into the actual previews for the final in all three of those tournaments. We're going to start off in chronological order. You're going to go with the same order as yesterday. Marseille is going to come first, then Dallas, and then Cordoba. Starting off in Marseille, you have a home country guy, as a pretty big underdog here against Dimitrov, as Dimitrov is minus 218 on the money line, while Humbert is plus 188. As for the over-under, 22.5, the over is minus 115, the under is minus 105. For game spread, Dimitrov minus 3 is minus 105, Humbert plus 3 is minus 115. If you want to go for some alt spreads, you can get Dimitrov minus 2.5 at minus 130. You can also get Humbert plus 2.5 at even money. If you want to go for 3.5, Humbert plus 3.5 is minus 140. Dimitrov minus 3.5 is plus 100. If you want to go for the set wagering, you can get Dimitrov in straight sets at plus 120. Humbert to win a set is minus 150, and the over 2.5 sets is available at plus 130. Now, to go through the head-to-head between these players, Dimitrov has done quite well. In fact, he's never lost against Humbert, so we'll see if history will repeat itself here on Sunday. Now, I will admit they faced off 2 times, technically 3, but there was a walkover involved in Washington last year, so that doesn't exactly count. They faced off in Cincinnati in 2020. Dimitrov did win in straight sets. Faced off in Paris, so there was one match in their head-to-head in Humbert's backyard, and Dimitrov did win that one in 3 sets. It was 2019, though. Does it mean anything? Not really. So the point is, this is the second time they've ever faced off in France. Now, I do think looking at this actual matchup, Dimitrov, I can understand being the favorite. Should he be minus 218? No, I think that line's too high. Kind of similarly to the way that I described the Khachanov match, Humbert's been fantastic. Just simply put, he lost the first set to Gaston, then killed him in the next 2 sets, then beat Fokina in straight sets, and then beat the defending champion Hurkacz, a top 10 player who was in great form for the entire 2024. 6-4, 6-4. He kind of beat him like a drum, and now he's getting plus 188 after Dimitrov had a war against Khachanov that took basically 3 hours on Saturday. This line feels steep. Now, I do think Dimitrov should be kind of like my price for the Khachanov match, 160, maybe 170 in this match. But 218, that feels massive to me. I think Humbert, with the home crowd behind him, which he's definitely fed off the energy from, I think he's in potential line to make this match very interesting, maybe win a set, maybe he'll win in 3, or maybe he just gets the job done in general. But I do think this price is too high. I like the over in this match. I see a very close battle. Humbert is a pretty unique player to prepare for, and I do think that Dimitrov is going to have success at times, but he has been involved in a lot of breakers recently. He's had at least one tiebreaker in 6 of his last 7 matches, so I do think you're looking at what should be a pretty long match, a pretty grueling match, and because of that, I do like the over in this match. I like the dog here plus the games. I like the 3.5 at minus 140. But I think you're going to see a marathon. I think it might go 3 again, but I do think there's some value on the dog here, and I do like the over because of it. Dimitrov, I think, is probably going to win because I think he's the better player right now. If Humbert wins, though, would I be shocked? Not at all. I think that Humbert is actually quite alive to win it. But 218, I think, is a bit crazy. I think it should be lower. And so if you want to go for a value play, maybe Humbert money line if you think he can find a way to get it done. But I do think Dimitrov is going to have moments where it's not exactly clear if he's going to survive, and I think he will. But the point is, I think it's going to be a little bit dicey at times. So give me Humbert plus the games and give me the over in what I think should be kind of a repeat of the match we saw between Dimitrov and Khachanov on Saturday. Maybe not to that extreme with 2 breakers and 3 competitive sets in general, but I do think you'll see probably 3 sets, and you'll probably see 1 breaker in there. So I am going to go with the dog here plus the games and the over. And moving on to the next match, we're going to look at the final in Dallas. You have 2 Americans. You have Paul at minus 175 as the favorite against Guy Rhone at plus 155. You're looking at the actual total games here. 23 flat is minus 110 on both sides. 22.5, the over is minus 150. The under is plus 120. As the game spread, Paul, I said it's 2.5 at minus 110. You can get 1.5 at minus 140. Guy Rhone plus 1.5 is plus 110. If you want to look at the actual set wagering, Paul in straight sets is plus 140. Guy Rhone to win a set is minus 170. Guy Rhone in straight sets is plus 350. If you want the match to go to 3 sets, you can find that at plus 120. Now, the story of this tournament has been Guy Rhone's just insanely hot run because he's been incredible. Guy Rhone has not dropped a single set, and he really hasn't been close to dropping a set. He's not dropped more than 4 games in a set in the entire tournament. He beat Moreno 6-1, 6-4, beat Purcell 6-4, 6-3, beat Tiafo 6-1, 6-4, and beat Manarino 6-1, 6-3. As for Paul, he had a pretty easy tournament as well, as he has not dropped the set, as he beat Daniel 6-3, 6-2, beat Kepfer 7-5, 6-3, and beat Shelton comfortably 6-2, 6-4. So I do think both players are in great form, which should make for a pretty interesting match. Now, for the head-to-head, it's actually pretty close. Now, they faced off 5 times. A couple of them are dated, but I'm going to mention it anyway. They faced off in a Futures event in 2017. Giron won. Faced off in, I believe it was a Challenger event in 2018. Giron won. Faced off in New Haven in 2019. Paul won. Faced off in the Miami Open in 2021, and Giron won that one in straight sets. And they faced off last year in Toronto, where Paul did win 6-3, 6-2. So all 5 matches were straight set wins, but it is currently 3-2 in favor of Giron. The first 2 meetings, though, were before 2019, so I don't know if that actually matters or not. But the point is the meetings have been close in terms of the head-to-head record. So we'll see what happens. But based on the form of both players, I kind of like Giron. It's kind of tricky to actually pick which guy's in better form when neither guy's dropped a set in the entire tournament. But looking at the eye test, Giron's been fantastic. And I do think looking at how these players match up, it should be a very long baseline rally match where each guy is going to try to outlast the other guy. You're going to see a lot of 30-plus shot rallies, and we'll see who comes out victorious. I do think Giron, though, is a little bit disrespected for these odds. I know part of it is because of the name recognition of Shelton, because Paul beat him in straight sets, while Giron beat Manarino. A reminder, Manarino did beat Shelton, though, in the Australian Open, so you could argue that those wins by each player are kind of a wash. But I do think Giron is actually quite alive to win this. Now, of course, we're hoping that Paul wins, because we have Paul to win the tournament as an outright, so it would be a lot cooler if Paul got the job done. So a reminder, if you ended up backing my outright picks, you already have action on this match, and you could hedge with Giron. I think it's going to be a marathon. It's kind of tricky to take an over 2.5 sets, though, when all 5 head-to-head meetings ended in straight sets. But those are so dated. The most recent meeting was last year. The most recent meeting before that was 2021. Not much recent history between these two players. So I do think you're going to end up seeing what should be a pretty competitive match, a fun match. I'm going to lean to Giron, though. I just think Giron has been in a slightly better form in terms of the eye test, and Giron has actually not gotten broken in the entire event. Paul was able to beat Shelton, but the serve was really not that great, and Paul mentioned that in the post-match on-court interview, where he said that his serve was not very good, and he managed to survive in a lot of these service games. The point is Giron has not gotten broken yet, so if you're going to talk about what should be a pretty even matchup, I will take the better server in this event, and that's Giron. So I think that there's some value at plus 155 on the dog. I am going to lean to the games, though. I think you're looking at what should be a close match. I'm going to lean to the plus 2.5. I'll lean to the over as well, even though I do admit that there has not been a 3-setter between them. Maybe a team total or a player prop total if you want to go for Tommy Paul at 12.5 games. The over is like minus 140, minus 130 or so. Giron's at 12 flat. Maybe if you want to take that too. I do see a longer match, but I do think you're going to see Giron have a pretty decent shot to win this. And because of that, I think the value is going to be on Giron. I really don't see any value at all on Tommy Paul at minus 175. So if I had to price it myself, I'd have Paul as a favorite because of ranking, obviously, and just based on pedigree. But I do think Paul should be closer to minus 130, minus 140. I see a pretty close match. So I think plus 155 is a good value play, and that's going to be my lean for this match. Moving on to the final match for this episode, we're going to look at the final in Cordoba. You're going to see 2 qualifiers going at it. One is Argentinian, so one is a home crowd advantage, as you have Darderi taking on Bagnis. Darderi is minus 142. Trying to win his first ever ATP title, first ever ATP final he's ever been in, while Bagnis is also looking for his first ATP title ever. I believe he's I'm trying to remember if he's 34 or he's about to turn 34. But the point is he's been around for a long time. He made it to one ATP final several years ago, and he's going to try to get the job done in the second time around. But you look at the actual lines here. Darderi is around minus 1.5 on the game spread at minus 111. Bagnis plus 1.5 is minus 109. The over-under is at 22.5. The over is minus 113. The under is minus 107. And I don't have any alt lines. So to go through my overall I'll start off with the head-to-head, actually. The head-to-head's been competitive. They faced off in French Open qualifying last year, and Bagnes beat him easily, as Bagnes beat him 6-3, 6-4. They faced off in Brazil, though, in 2022, and Darderi did win in 3, despite getting bageled in the first set. Lost the first set 6-0, then came back and won 7-5, 6-2. So the point is the head-to-head's 1-1, both meetings on clay. Bagnes was the most recent winner in the French Open qualifying last year. When I saw this line, I was shocked. I can understand that Darderi just ended up beating the defending champion, and I get that Darderi's been great throughout this event, beat Hanfmann, he's been pretty comfortable. Having said that, his first ever ATP final against a guy in his home country with a ton of experience, and he's minus 142, this line's crazy to me. Now, I get if you think Darderi's going to win, that's fine. I think we can agree, though, that minus 142 is a little bit nuts, especially since Bagnes has not dropped a set in the entire tournament, including qualifying. Like, that feels a bit crazy to me. Darderi had a war against Baez, which he won. Good win. He was kind of cramping a bit towards the end of that match. He double faulted twice in a row to give the break back late in that third set. Then he got the immediate break back to allow him to serve it again for the match. But I saw him double fault a bunch down the stretch. It seemed like his fitness was not great. Bagnes had a tough job closing it out in the second set against Coria, but he was on the court for a lot less time. And the fact is, if you have a guy in his home country who has not dropped a set in the entire event, and he's against a 21-year-old, I'm going to take the dog here. I think 122 is a very solid price. I thought that this was going to be closer to Darderi minus 115, minus 110 apiece. If you told me Bagnes was a favorite, I wouldn't be shocked. So the point is, this line could have gone any way. And Darderi being minus 142, I think's nuts. I just think that you're looking at what should be a pretty competitive match. If you think that Darderi's fitness is going to be a concern, then I think there's value on Bagnes. And I do think there's value, because I wonder how Darderi's going to handle playing this much tennis, dealing with this much pressure. And I do think the crowd will be against him once again. Now, it didn't matter in the Baez match. Baez was spraying unforced errors for the entire third set. But I think this line is a bit steep. I think it should be close to a pick'em. I would have it at minus 110 apiece if I had to line it myself. Maybe Darderi a slight favorite, minus 115. But the fitness at the end of the match is a concern, and I do think the home crowd will play a factor. Now, a reminder, for the sake of the history of this event, every year in Cordoba that this tournament's been held, the finals go in 3 sets. Every single time, the finals go in 3 sets. If you want to blindly take the over 2.5 sets, historically, that is a 100% play. So if you want to do that, I think it can go 3 sets. I don't mind that either. But I do think you're looking at what should be a pretty fun match. Give me the guy who has not dropped the set yet, getting plus 122 against maybe a somewhat injured or somewhat compromised young player who might succumb to the nerves. We'll see what happens. But I do think there's some value on the dogs here. Common trend for the show, I ended up going with the dogs. So that's kind of where I'm looking. I think Bagnes gets it done, and I think he finally wins his first ever title in front of the home country fans. Now, for a question in the actual YouTube chat, a reminder, we are doing this on YouTube as well, if you're following this on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. So I am taking questions. Cap wants to know if I'm doing more pods. I actually am. This year I decided to include quarterfinal episodes for every event. So in previous years, I did 250s and 500s. I did the semis and the final. This year, I also included quarterfinals. So there are more episodes. That is not just something that you might have noticed, but you can't tell if it's true or not. It is true. We are doing more episodes per tournament. Now, as for Masters 1000s and for Grand Slams, we're still doing 1 episode per round. But for 250s and 500s, the new edition of 2024 for this podcast, we are doing bonus episodes for quarterfinals. That's the difference. But anyway, I'm going to go with Bagnes here. Should be fun. Both guys have an underrated amount of firepower. Both can generate some topspin as well with their shots. But I think Bagnes and Darderi, the serves, might be the story here. And with Darderi's cramping late in that Baez match, I'm a little bit concerned. And I think that this line's too high. So that's going to wrap it up for my actual previews of the championship matches taking place on Sunday in Marseille, in Dallas, and in Cordoba. Now it is time for the lock and dog picks for the show. But before we get into any of that, going to have a quick word from our sponsor. We're brought to you by the SGP Super Bowl 58 Props Contest. $1,000 winner take all prize, free to enter. Pick 58 props for Super Bowl 58. Enter today, sportsgamepodcast.com/SB58, or hit the link in the SGPN app. We're also brought to you by Cut. Cut is a peer-to-peer social betting platform that's US-based and available in 40 states. Peer-to-peer social betting is the new and better way to bet. Bet directly against your friends or other users on sports, politics, pop culture, and other events with fair, viable outcomes, and a ton of fun social features that give it the feel of a betting social network. Cut offers lower VIG and fully customizable odds so you can create your own bets. Cut handles the payment side of things, so you never have to worry about chasing down your money. Social features include group chats, betting leaderboards, head-to-head history, user profiles, fan groups, and more. And they have good rewards. Get cash back every single time you bet against your friends or other users. And our partners at Cut are giving away $5,000 to the user who refers the most new depositors by the end of the Super Bowl weekend. All you have to do is invite your friends to sign up for Cut via the Invite Friend button on your dashboard and have them deposit before Monday. The user with the most depositor referrals will get $5,000 in site credit automatically added to their accounts next week. Cut is the peer-to-peer social betting platform that's US-based, available in 40 states. Head to cut.com, it's KUTT.com, and use promo code SGPN for a 10% deposit bonus. We're also brought to you by Game Time. I don't know about all of you, but I personally love attending sporting events in person, and it used to be very annoying to actually find a ticketing provider that I could trust, but that changed once I found the Game Time app, because Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all these sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. They have a lot of great features in the app, including my favorite feature, which is the images of seat views, so I'm sure you've had this happen before. You buy a ticket, you're ready for the event you're about to watch, and then you suddenly realize there's an obstruction, a pole or something in front of you, and you realize that you spent money, your hard-earned money, on a sporting event that you can barely watch because your view's obstructed. That is not going to happen with this feature, because it will show you a preview of the exact view you're going to get if you purchase that ticket. So you can definitely avoid those type of disaster situations before spending your hard-earned money on tickets. But they also have a lot of great last-minute ticket deals. Forget plenty of months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals for tickets on football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So snag tickets out the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account. Use code CFBX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CFBX for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We're also brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets. Win bigger betting smarter this NFL season with Hall of Fame Bets, sports analytics platform parlays, player props, and game lines. Research every NFL, NBA, and soccer bet with historical stats and data. Enter any parlay idea into Hall of Fame Bets' revolutionary parlay optimizer tool to get hit rates broken down by leg, as well as an expected probability for the entire parlay. Sort all players by hit rate for any bet, or in which picks are hot, or which players are hot and which picks have value. Stop betting in the dark and join over 30,000 users researching with Hall of Fame Bets to craft more intelligent, data-driven parlays. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app, visit HOFBets.com. Use code SGPN to get 50% off your first month and start making smarter bets today. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished previewing the 3 final matches in Cordoba, Dallas, and in Marseille taking place on Sunday. Now it is time for the moment you've been waiting for, the lock and dog picks for the show. For the lock, we are going to go back to the first match in Marseille, and we're going to take the over 22.5 games in the Dimitrov and Humbert match. Kind of just rinse and repeat from what we did for the semis. Dimitrov has been a tiebreaker magnet. We saw a war take place against Khachanov, and we cashed the over for the lock in the last episode, which you can see right here. So the same exact number at 22.5, you're actually saving 15 cents because this time it is minus 115 compared to minus 130. But Humbert's been in great form so far in this event. He's won each of the last 6 sets, including a straight sets win against Hurkacz. So he's been in good form. Dimitrov's been in good form too. And there's been at least one tiebreaker in 6 of Dimitrov's last 7 matches. I mentioned before, they faced off one time in Humbert's home country a couple years ago in Paris. That went 3 sets, but I do think you're going to see a close match. I think the odds in this match are kind of ridiculous, with Dimitrov being around minus 218, minus 220. So for me, give me a close battle like we saw in the semis between Dimitrov and Khachanov, and I'll take the over 22.5 games as my lock as a result. Now for the dog, I am going to go to Cordoba. Yes, historically speaking, I mentioned earlier that the over 2.5 sets in the final is 100%. You take the over 2.5 sets in the Cordoba championship match, you pretty much automatically win, historically speaking. I'm going to go with the dog here, though. I am going to go with Bagnus on the money line at plus 122 instead. Couple reasons why. First reason, Bagnus has not dropped a set in the entire tournament, including qualifying. So having him get plus money against a relative unknown. I'm going to give Darderi props, though. He's been great so far in this event, and I definitely sold him short in that bias match in the semis. My bad there. Darderi was fantastic, simply put. But I do think that Bagnus is in great form, not dropping a set. He has home court advantage with the crowd. Bagnus also won last year's head-to-head meeting in French Open qualifying, so I know Bagnus can definitely have the game to get the job done. And I do think, looking at Bagnus' overall form, he's in a good spot with him not dropping a set in the entire event, with him beating Coria in the early match. Darderi had the late match, which ended up going long, and he was cramping a bit towards the end of that third set against Baez. So physically, I have my doubts about Darderi if this ends up going a long way. I think, once again, Bagnus, we saw the head-to-head work out in his favor against Coria. He's a lefty who can really generate a lot of height on the bounces with his forehand, and that can definitely make life difficult for Darderi, give him some unique looks. Also, in being a lefty, having some volley skills and the drop shots have been on point for Bagnus. I just like his overall variety, and I do think that with him being in this experienced, with him just having such a significant experience advantage, with him being around the tour for a long time, while Darderi is in his first ever ATP final, I think it's a good spot, and I think that this price is once again too large for a guy who was a little bit banged up to end that match and really survived a war. So give me Bagnus on the money line here at plus 122 to get the job done as my dog. So once again, my picks for the show, the lock is going to be on the over 22.5 games in the Dimitrov and Humbert match at minus 115. And my dog will be on Bagnus money line at plus 122. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. A reminder, a couple of announcements before we officially end the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube. Don't forget to rate and review the podcast on Spotify or on Apple if you're still consuming the podcast that way. As for next week, we have 3 tournaments once again. We have one taking place in Buenos Aires, so that's going to be on clay. And we have 2 hardcore events in Rotterdam and in Delray Beach. I am going to let you all know, though, Rotterdam is a 500, so the field should be slightly better in Rotterdam than in Delray and in Buenos Aires. Should be fun, though, and hopefully we'll end up picking some outright winners in the next episode. Probably going to do all 3 in one episode. Maybe we'll divide it like we did for the past week, where we'll have one episode for the hardcourt events with Rotterdam and with Delray, one for the clay event in Buenos Aires, or maybe actually I might do one for Rotterdam alone because it's a 500, but probably if I can, I'll do all 3 in one episode. We'll try to do that, but either way, until next time, you can find me on Twitter, Reichel Radio, find me on the NBA show, the MLB show, the WNBA show, the NFL show. You get the point. Until next time, though, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.